and how it went from like this kind of survival horror film by James Cameron, which is, the first film is really good in its own way, but T2, man, is a fucking masterpiece to this day. So to have RoboCop 2 fall so far off from the original it's such a missed opportunity, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's you and I both watched it back to back with the first one, and you're on such a high watching the first one, and then you watch the second one, and it's just, oh man, it's such an inferior sequel. I mean, it was an okay hit. It wasn't a huge hit.
Yeah, I think it was made for a modest budget, and I think it pulled in somewhere around 45 million is what I read.
Yeah, but it cost like 30 mil, and it makes 45, as opposed to the first RoboCop, which is about 13 mil and makes 53, almost 54 million.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of slow. There's not a lot of action. The action that is there is kind of cheesy.
Yeah, it feels like, even though there is some how do you say it, like violence and language and stuff, but it feels like they were almost trying to do what they did with Ninja Turtles, where part 2 is just like obviously trying to, just broaden their audience target, where it gets so outlandish and ridiculous, and trying and forcing the comedy that it just loses the magic that the first one had. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's, the hyper violence isn't there.
No, not nearly as effective as the first one. I do want to say that I feel like, at least in my opinion, that they did get the tone right. Like RoboCop 2, for what it's worth, does match the tone of the first one, but as far as its story and its characters and what they choose to do with the plot, it's just kind of like, really, guys, like this is where we went with this, and it's kind of boring, and you're just waiting for it to be over. I think the best thing they had going for it is that Murphy looks pretty authentic to the first one. He looks exactly the same. Almost, you could almost say, like, did they pick up and just start filming like right away? With the second one. Obviously, it wasn't Verhoeven in the director's chair, thankfully. But yeah, 2 is just terrible.
It's like, I love Tom Noonan, but he's not a good villain. Like, he's almost like a non-entity in the movie.
Yeah, as Kane, that guy is usually really good, and they underused him, and then they kill him off in an unclimactic way, and they put him in this in this big cyborg unit thing. But then even that's just kind of like, you don't care, and they start relying on the stop motion action so much that it's just like, oh, this is just like ridiculous in a bad way,
Yeah. Yeah, he's barely in the movie, even when he is the main villain. Lewis is barely in the movie, Nancy Allen. She's got a couple of scenes, and then she's not really his partner, except in the one fairly decent scene after he's been dismantled and OCP has fucked with his programming. Mm-hmm. And there's that scene where the Little League team is robbing the store. Yeah. And Lewis and Murphy roll up on the coach who opens fire on them, and instead of Murphy shooting him, he's kind of just walking towards him, trying to defuse the situation, and Lewis is using him as the shield, shooting at the coach and saying, what's wrong? Like, why aren't you killing him? That scene's pretty good, but that's like one of the only scenes that Lewis is really in. And it's such. I'll tell you what. It compares to the Predator sequel.
Oh, yeah.
Where like the first movie is so amazing and it's so great and great action movie, a great sci-fi hybrid or a great sci-fi action hybrid film. And then the second one is just such a letdown. And I have watched both those movies back to back, and it's like, oh, you're on that high after watching the first Predator, and then the second one comes up, and it's got some decent stuff in it, but it's clearly an inferior sequel that just does not live up to the original at all. And I remember liking RoboCop 2 when I was young, but I was 10 years old, so everything was cool. But like rewatching it later on, I watched it 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. And was kind of on it, and then I decided to watch it again as we were, preparing to do this show. And it's it's just such a bad movie. I have zero desire to ever watch it again at this point. It's bad, and then there's RoboCop 3, which is complete trash, which I've only seen once, won't ever watch again. I think the first draft of the RoboCop 2 screenplay is what was kind of used as the basis for the third RoboCop.
Mm-hmm.
And Fred Decker who did the Monster Squad, which we're both big fans of, and RoboCop 3 it's so bad, and I think he got a lot of shit for it. But also it was, people think that the studio, Orion Pictures, fucked with it.
Uh-huh.
And Fred Decker said, no, that's the movie I wanted to make, and that's what I did.
I remember when I was in Burbank a couple years ago now. Might have been 2019. And Fred Decker was just roaming the halls, and I got the courage to go up and ask for a picture with him, because I'm obviously a big Monster Squad fan. And I remember telling you about it, and you were like, did you ask him why he fucked up RoboCop 3? And I'll always remember that. Oh, man.
Hey, man, you gotta ask the tough questions.
Yes.
But I had heard that the RoboCop 2 Frank Miller original screenplay was supposed to be really good, and then Orion Studios fucked with it, and that's why RoboCop 2 wasn't totally Frank Miller's vision. And then it was either Marvel or Dark Horse came out with like the adaptation of the original script, and apparently it was pretty shitty.
Okay.
So it was like, that script wasn't that good to begin with. I will say that I do have the Marvel adaptation of the first one, and then there's like a 3-part adaptation of the second one that I have, that I got years ago at one of my favorite comic book stores that was no longer around. I do have those. Really happy with those.
Let me ask you about, what are your thoughts of, and I think this idea has been since scrapped, but there was, in recent years, there was talk about a direct sequel to Verhoeven's RoboCop with Neil Blomkamp in the director's chair.
Yeah, they were kind of going to do the Halloween thing with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were going to ignore the sequels and just make a direct follow-up. I think they were even talking to Peter Weller to try and get him back. I was stoked for it. I was stoked for his Aliens follow-up, too.
Yep.
That was like supposed to be, this big project that he was going to be working on that was going to ignore the sequels and was going to just be a direct follow-up to this. And then, like with the Alien sequel, it seemed like the RoboCop sequel just disappeared. I think it might still be in development, but he's no longer part of it. I know he dropped out.
It's in development with the director of the newer film Little Monsters. I think with Lupita Nyong'o.
Oh, the zombie, the kid, like the Girl Scout zombie movie or something.
Yes.
I always wanted to watch that. Is that any good?
I have yet to see it.
It looked pretty funny when I saw the trailer for it.
Yeah, I definitely. It's definitely on my watch list. And forgive me, but that director's name escapes me right now. But I believe from what I read, he is right now helming that project.
Well, if it's still on deck, that would be cool to see. I was really stoked for Blomkamp because he kind of needs a strong movie to kind of come back with. He hasn't made anything in years, and even his last movie I wasn't wild about.
What was the last one, Chappie?
Yeah.
I still haven't seen it.
I remember being pretty stoked for it and then being really let down when I saw it.
All right.
Apparently I'm in the minority because I really like Elysium.
Okay.
And I know that movie gets shit on a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's great.
No,
it's not as good as District 9, obviously, and I don't think he's going to have anything as good as District 9.
That must be why he, because a couple weeks ago, a couple shows back, my news was that he is developing District 10 sequel, I believe.
Not having a lot of luck with his follow-ups to that movie, so he's going to return to the District 9 universe. Well, I wish him luck. I really do. I think he's a talented director, and I would have been really stoked to see his version of the RoboCop sequel, and if that's still on, that's cool. But I was really hoping that he was going to stick with it because I was really bummed when I heard that the Alien sequel wasn't happening.
Especially because of what we got with Covenant, which we've talked about again and again.
Covenant's so bad. What a waste of a good cast, too. And speaking of a waste of a good cast, there's the 2014 RoboCop remake. Which, who's in that cast, man? It's like Joel Kinnaman is RoboCop. Michael Keaton's in it, Samuel L. Jackson, Jackie Earle Haley, Michael K. Williams, Jennifer Ellie, who I think is kind of an underrated actress. It's got a solid... Gary Oldman is in it.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, it's a solid cast, but what a piece of shit movie that was. And the whole human hand... thing is just weird. The flip-up visor where you can see his face is just weird. Do you have anything else to say about that shitty movie?
No, just probably you don't need to watch it if you haven't already. It's just remake fodder. Shitty fodder.
I was not looking forward to it, and then I watched a morbid curiosity and was just like, wow, I just totally wasted those 2 hours.
Did you catch it in the theater or on video?
I saw pieces of it from the projection booth. I was... that must have been Jewish Film Festival I was running, because I think it came out in the late winter or early spring. And that's usually about the time the Jewish Film Festival is around. So I was doing the Jewish Film Festival stuff, and RoboCop was playing in one of the adjacent theaters, so I would kind of pop my head in and watch a few minutes here and there. Wasn't into it, but then it was on HBO, so I figured, well, I'll sit down and I'll stomach getting through it against my will. It's also PG-13, so fuck that. I told you I hate when they make sequels or remakes of clearly hardcore R-rated movies, and they PG-13 them. Fucking hate that. So I got two quick anecdotes for you.
All right, let's hear them.
One is, we've made multiple mentions to it, so it's no secret that we tried to record this episode earlier today. And, we didn't get very far into it. There was, dogs barking. and it was just disrupting everything, and we were stopping and starting, and you just said, you know what? It's going to be a lot easier if we go to record this tonight. So after we part ways earlier,